Hello friends. So, from today we will start our discussion on different methods of observation and data collection. And today we will particularly talk on the one of the most important methods for observation used in the research, that itself is observation. So, what we understand by method of observation in the context of research? So, method of observation in the context of research, it means that these are systematic and standard procedure for obtaining data. So, you can take this method of observations are the systematic observation, systematic extension of the measurement theories and methods what we talked about or what we discussed in length till now. So, the data collection methods which are available or information collection methods which are available in case of the social research to the social scientist. Okay. So, firstly those can be categorized based on their directness. Directness means mostly in the social or behavioral research we are interested to know about the psychological position of a particular person, like opinion, attitude, aspiration. So, of a particular person towards certain issues, certain construct, certain referent object, like that. So, now if I want to know your attitude towards the governance in India, so I can, or if I want to know about your attitude towards the different gender or different races. Okay. So, I can, the one way is that I can directly ask you few questions related to that particular construct or referent object, like I am talking about different type of the races. Okay. So, like people from the northern India, people from the southern India, from the northeastern India. Okay. So, what do you think about them? So, I can directly devise some question related to their behavior, related to their activity, related to their aggressiveness and all this related aspect. Okay. And I can ask your opinion on that. So, here okay. So, the method is relatively direct, or instead of doing that, what we can do? We can give some ambiguous stimuli in forms of the picture, in forms of the also the this incomplete statement. Okay. And I can ask you to project on those particular incomplete stimuli. Okay. So, those again included under the projective technique. Okay. So, we will talk in length about projective techniques and all those things also. So, here okay, the method is totally indirect. So, most of the data collection method in the social sciences, okay, so they are relatively direct and moderately indirect. So, another aspect in the directness is there, that is how to make the inferences. Okay. So, there are certain methods available where a set of stimuli are presented, the response category are already fixed. So, there are again, if you take into consideration the ambiguous stimuli I was talking about. So, response categories are quite open or quite diverse. Okay. You may get certain unexpected response from that particular ambiguous stimuli. Okay. So, that also add to the directness of the method. Okay. So, as I already told that most of the method which we use in the social science researches, those are relatively direct and moderately indirect. So, today as I already told, today mostly we will talk about the one of the method of the data collection, that is observation. So, it is being told that science itself or scientific research itself begins with observation, and ultimately it ends with observation also. Okay. For developing a scientific research, for developing a problem, first you have to observe you have to scan the environment, you have to look into the society. Okay. You have to look into the different aspect of behavior of the human beings. Okay. The trend and all those things. Then at the collection of the data also, when you design the problem, okay, when devise particular technique for collecting information, then you use those techniques, okay, and you use observation to put data or put response on against those particular stimuli. And then again, after getting the response from a number of people, okay, so you add some statistical analysis to find the trend, okay, and you observe the trend, and based on that you make inferences. So, observation is involved from the formation of the a particular social research to the at the end of the research, means making inferences out of your out of the data or categorized data. Okay. Now, the observation also include, okay, observation is not entirely objective in nature. Okay. So, observation, there is always a biases involved in the observation. Okay. So, we become selective in the process of the observations, but when you talk about the method of observation as a scientific data collection, okay, so these particular observation procedure must be designed in a such a way that it can exclude the selective tendency which are present into the observer as a human being. Okay. So, that is the importance of the observation from the point of view of the scientific research. So, as I already told that this observation is the most commonly used method. Okay. So, especially in case of the behavioral sciences, either directly or indirectly. Okay. So, your entire or the observation will be involved in the some steps of your research. So, how it is being done? So, in case of the observation, the information or data is sought by the investigator own direct view without asking the respondent. Okay. So, means in case of the observation method, okay, as it is relatively indirect. Okay. So, here the respondent were not asked to express their opinion, express their psychological position. Okay. Instead of that, the observer or the researcher, okay, he in his own view, he record the data, he inferred about the behavioral pattern he is seeing. So, what is the advantage of this particular process? Okay. So, in this process, we generally, the subjective bias means subjective bias is eliminated. That means you can actually increase the objectivity, okay, if it is done accurately. Second, the observation method, okay, provide information about what is happening, okay, at the present condition. Okay. And another, it is generally devoid of one important problem, that is known as the non-response in case of the social scientific research, because the most of the social or behavioral research, it depend on the opinion or the psychological position that is expressed by the other human being. Okay. So, it is required under the social research that your respondent, they must be agreed to provide you the related information. Okay. So, in somehow it depends on the willingness of the respondent in reporting the behavior. Okay. So, that when you take the observation as a method of the data collection, so it is relatively independent of the respondent willingness to respond. Okay. But apart from this less subjective bias and its independence from the willingness of the respondent to provide response, okay, the observation method of the data collection is also not free from the biases or not free from the limitation. Okay. So, the first is that through the process of the observation, you can actually collect very limited information, because many of the, as I already told, in case of the psychological research, we mostly deal with the construct. Okay. So, most of the construct are not either directly observable as well as they are not directly measurable. So, from that you can understand that the very limited amount of information and which are mostly superficial in nature. Okay. So, that can be collected through the process of the observation. Okay. So, now there is also a problem of what to do with the data you collected from the observation, because sometimes or most of the times the data you collected from the observation, it required a lot of extra effort to categorize those data, okay, to structure those data, so that you can actually make meaningful inferences from the analysis of the data. So, that means the data which is generated by the observation method, okay, those are relatively unstructured. The first struggle you have to make, or first pain you have to take, that is to categorize the data, okay, to assign numerals against those data, so that some measurement scheme can be devised. Okay. Secondly, okay, so most of these data are which you collected from the observation, okay, so sometimes they are much more qualitative in nature. Okay. So, they may not be prone to a number of statistical analysis, but despite of these facts, observation is used as a important method of the data collection in many of the social research. So, now these observation methods may be different types. Okay. One of the common typology is that the structured observation, unstructured observation and control observation. So, this structured observation or structuredness of an observation, okay, so that is based on the that whether what to observe and how to measure them, that is mentioned or not. So, in case of the structured observation, the entire coding scheme or entire measurement scheme is generally devised beforehanded, before the observation started, and which behavior to observe, okay, that is also specified at the beginning of the process. Okay. And the structured observation is mostly used for the collection of the quantitative data. On the other hand, the unstructured observation, okay, so that depends on this no previous or no pre-decided scheme for observing or coding of the observed behavior was not devised. So, the observation in this particular process is more natural like situation, okay, and mostly the unstructured observation is mostly used for the qualitative research or collection of the qualitative data usually. Okay. So, and control observation means here along with this, okay, so in the control, I think by now you understood the meaning of the control in the research. Okay. So, whenever we add control, that means we are talking about somehow the controlling the variances. So, how these variances are controlled? Okay, that is by manipulating the sum of the variables. Okay. So, control observation means the here in the research situation, there is a observer generally manipulate some of the variables to record the change in the other variables. Okay. So, we call them the control observation. So, obviously, the control observation mostly fall under the structured, it is much more a structured observation, okay, along with the addition of the manipulation ability of the variables. Okay. So, another aspect is there when you make observation of the behavior, that we call that event sampling and time sampling. So, what it is? Okay. So, if you want to observe a particular behavior, so either you can observe that particular behavior when this particular event is ongoing. Okay. So, maybe you are trying to find out how much honest the school children are, or how much honesty is there among the student of a particular class. Okay. So, what you can do, or you can look into the particular event like examination, where there is the honesty and some cheating may happen. Okay. So, that is one aspect of the observing behavior, we call this the event sampling. So, this event sampling has a number of advantages. What are the advantages? The first one is that the event is basically a natural situation or nature like situation. So, obviously, so this event have the inherent higher validity. Secondly, in case of the event sampling, okay, so there is continuity of the behavior will be there, okay, as event is natural or ongoing situation. On the other hand, there is another type of sampling of, in case of the behavior observation, we call them the time sampling. Okay. So, in case of the time sampling, we look into the behavior event in the piecemeal manner. Instead of observing the entire incident happening, okay, we only selectively observe that particular behavior. Okay. In case of the time sampling, there is a chance for the obtaining much more representative event or representative behavioral event. Okay. Secondly, so that means, okay, time sampling has a particular advantage that you will get so in case of the event sampling, that particular event you are trying to find out, that may happen or may not happen. Okay. But in case of the time sampling, so it has the much more higher representativeness. Okay. But in case of the time sampling, it also has a disadvantage. Okay. So, which was advantages in case of the event sampling? Okay. So, that is also disadvantage in case of the time sampling. What is the limitation or disadvantages? That is, the times are not natural like or nature like situation, okay, like the event. Okay. So, that means the natural continuity of the behavior may not be there in case of the time sampling. Okay. So, event sampling is mostly used for the structured observation, okay, whereas the time sampling, it is mostly used for the unstructured observation. So, now you can also classify the method of the observation in case of the research like simple observation and systematic observation. Okay. Now, the simple observation, now it may be again classified into as the uncontrolled participant observation, uncontrolled non-participant observation, and the systematic observation on the other hand, okay, it may be classified into two different categories like control over the observer and control over the observed. Okay. So, we will take a look into what these particular types means, okay, or typologies means. Okay. So, first we are talking about the uncontrolled participant and non-participant observation. Okay. So, most of the relation, most of the knowledge we have in the sociology or social relation, that is basically derived from this uncontrolled observation. Okay. So, as I explained many times that control means the standardization of the observational technique, okay, and sometimes along with the standardization of the observational techniques means which behavior to observe, how to code them. Okay. So, along with that there is another aspect of the manipulation of the variables. That means, when you talk about the uncontrolled participant and non-participant observation, it means that there is no standardization or less standardization of the what behavioral you need to observe, how to code them, and secondly the control over the variables is not there, okay, or minimal. So, now coming to the first type of the simple observation, that is the uncontrolled participant observation. Okay. So, this particular procedure is used when the investigator can disguise himself as a member of the group. Participant simply means, okay, so when we are observing a particular phenomena or when we are observing a particular group, we become the part or parcel of that particular group. Okay. We start to act like the group member, mostly the other members as knowing this, that you are your original identity as an investigator. Okay. And in this process, okay, so generally he developed much in-depth knowledge and experiences and may be able to record the actual behavior of the participant without any intrusion. Okay. But the uncontrolled participant observation has number of limitation also. The first one is that whenever you are using participant observation, that means you are acting like the group members. So, there is always a chance that you will develop certain bias. Okay. So, your activity will be limited within a particular range. Okay. So, in this process it basically narrows the range of the experiences he can gain. Secondly, so as the respondent participate emotionally, okay, so it may affect the objectivity of the research findings, okay, which is one of the most important criteria for the qualifying a research as a scientific research. Okay. And as I already told, okay, uncontrolled means there is no standardization. So, when standardization is not there, okay, so there will be always problem with the assigning numerals or the coding of the data, categorizing the data as well as analysis of the data to draw meaningful inferences. So, second type of simple observation is the uncontrolled non-participant observation. Okay. So, though we use the term non-participant observation, but in actuality there is nothing is possible like absolute non-participation. Okay. So, somehow all the participation, all the observation are, there is an aspect of the participation. Okay. So, as I already told, so it is almost impossible to actually conduct the totally non-participant observation. Okay. So, in that way, so we can take this non-participant observation are basically quasi-participant. So, here the respondent don't become the member of the group which is being observed. Okay. So, second broad category of observation was systematic observation. So, systematic observation again classified into two particular different type, that is one was that is based on the control over the observer, second one is on the control of the observed. Okay. So, simple observation, the previous one we are discussing about, that is mostly useful, okay, for the exploratory study. Okay. But from the scientific point of view, okay, due to problem with the standardization of the data, we gradually start to use more controlled or standardized observation. Okay. So, gradually more standardized and controlled observation means, okay. So, generally the observation are made based on the carefully designed questions, carefully designed schedule, okay, and those information you get from this schedule or question, okay, that can be put into certain type of the testing, okay, with the better control over the different behavioral event which are being observed. Okay. So, and as we gain the preliminary idea about the relation between the variables, okay. So, for drawing meaningful conclusion or for devising theories, okay. So, we need to convert to the, or we need to rely much more on the control observation. Okay. So, the formal interview, the inventory, use of the schedule, use of the maps, okay. So, these basically add control over the observer, okay. And this control observation basically guide the observer, okay, to the specific type of the, or guide the observer to the specific type of observation and with the instruction. So, using how to use these particular tools, okay, and how to assign codes by using these particular tools. So, in broadly, okay, so we take a look into the different aspect of the observation, okay, including its advantage and limitation. But as I already told, okay, that sometimes the observation is the only tool available to get preliminary knowledge about the different social facts, okay, which in the later stages may be supplemented with the much more controlled techniques, like which include the controlled observation or standardized observation, okay, which is generally supplemented by a number of well designed and structured instrument like interview, like questionnaire, like test, okay, to draw meaningful and more scientific inferences. So, with this we will conclude today's lecture. Like as always, you can go through this textbook for further reading, particularly for this particular topic, okay, the method of the social research, okay, that is written by the Godde and Hatt, okay. So, that book may be very useful, okay. Also the other books also you can get preliminary, or you can get quite good information about the method of the observation as a instrument of the scientific research, okay. So, we will conclude today's lecture. Thank you.